My name is Kent Chandler. I'm chairman of the Kentucky Public Service Commission. Joining me to my right is Vice Chairman of the Commission, Angie Hatton, and to my left, Commissioner Mary Pat Regan. Just to let everybody know that this meeting is being recorded for the benefit of the public, as well as the record in this case. We're here today to take public comments in case number 2022-00402 regarding the application of Kentucky Utilities and Louisville Gas and Electric. To reiterate the point made during the overview, the role and obligation of the Public Service Commission is to ensure that the application does or does not meet the statutory requirements required in this case, including whether there is a need for the proposed generation and whether the proposal results in wasteful duplication. We understand that in any proceeding of this type, there are strong feelings and opinions. I ask that as you provide comments today that you be respectful and mindful of the time limit for each speaker. We are here to listen. The utility is not presenting during the public comment meeting, and neither are the interveners or the other parties in the case. The utilities and the other parties in the case will have an opportunity to make their case during the pendency of this matter. This is an opportunity for customers of the utility and the public to state their positions, concerns, and to provide the Commission comment for its consideration. Again, the Commission is here to listen. During today's comment sessions, the Commissioners will not be answering questions. The Commission is the fact finder and decision maker in this case, and as such, the Commissioners are unable to comment or speak to the process or substance of the pending application. Nevertheless, questions that you may ask during your comments may be of assistance to the Commission and its staff in adjudicating this matter. If you have questions for the utility or parties to this case, you may ask them during the public meeting with the anticipation that those entities may later convey an appropriate answer outside of this public comment session. Contact information for all utilities can be received by calling the Kentucky Public Service Commission and speaking to our staff at the Commission. If anyone would like the phone number for the Public Service Commission, we are happy to provide that after the comment session. At this point, I would like to ask if there are any representatives from the following parties to the case so that they may answer your questions separately. I'd ask that representatives from these parties please stand when I mention their name. First, the applicants, Louisville Gas and Electric and Kentucky Utilities. Okay. The Kentucky Office of the Attorney General. The Kentucky Coal Association. The Mercer County Fiscal Court. The Kentucky Industrial Utility Customers. The joint interveners, which comprise the Metropolitan Housing Coalition, Kentuckians for the Commonwealth, Kentucky Solar Energy Society, and Mountain Association. The Sierra Club. The cities of Lexington and Louisville. And then finally, Walmart. Given the number of participants that have initially indicated their interest in providing comments, which is in excess of 20, we will be limiting comments tonight to 6 minutes per comment. We will let you know when you have 1 minute remaining. I'll let you know when you have 1 minute remaining by raising the yellow sheet. As always, in addition to the opportunity to provide comments tonight, written comments may be made to the Public Service Commission at any time during the consideration of this case. We ask that any comment include your name, your address, and please reference the case number. And again, in this matter, the case number is 2022-00402. That's 2022-402. You can email those to the Public Service Commission at the email address located on the screen, psc.comment@ky.gov. It's a dedicated public comment email address. You can also mail them to the Public Service Commission at 211 Sauer Boulevard, Frankfort, Kentucky, 40601. I have it on good authority that you can also send it to 40602. Apparently, they're pretty much the same thing. And then there's also a portal that is too hard to find on our website, but you can also provide comments through our website at psc.ky.gov. Tonight, I ask that when you come to the microphone that you let us know your name and your address. And, of course, you don't have to indicate the case number in this matter. And I will start a timer to go 6 minutes when you start your actual public comments in earnest. Again, you can ask questions, but the three of us can't respond, and we cannot answer the questions. If you ask the questions, they may be of use to us. It may be a good question. Maybe we're curious of the same thing. We can ask it in the case. Maybe you'll get an answer from somebody after the public comments are done. But I just want to make sure I reiterate that so nobody has any different expectations. We'll start now. I have a list of folks who came. It's a transcribed list, so if I mess your name up, that is my apologies. All the names on here are secondhand. I'm calling them by the order in which they signed in. After we go through the set list of names and we're done with everybody who indicated that they were interested in taking public comments, I'll go back through and ask if there's anyone who had not signed up previously that would also like to provide public comments. All right, so at this point, we will take our first public comment from Josh Buckman. And I just want to, while the first commenter is coming up, if any of the commissioners are scribbling or looking down, it's that we're taking notes on the comments, not that we're not paying attention. I just want to make sure that's clear. So, please.
Okay. My name is Josh Buckman. My address is 124 Strawberry Fields Road, Lexington, Kentucky, 40516. And my comments are, as a medical social worker, my job is to advocate for patients, people who need a voice. And I wanted to point out the negative impacts of coal plants, such as decreased lung function. Infants that are raised near coal plants tend to have lower respiratory tract functions. People who live near coal plants tend to have more likely to have strokes, heart disease, blood disease. It can also negatively impact the brain of a newborn child. It can also lead to more miscarriages in women, and it can also lead to decreased sperm counts. In fact, one study in particular even noted that when a coal plant closed, fertility rates actually increased in the area. Additional diseases such as asthma and cystic fibrosis have been noted, and that's just a few of the diseases. Anyway, I hope that we can find cleaner, healthier sources of electricity for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. And something I didn't mention earlier, and I should have, I appreciate that. If you have, I've never needed a microphone in my entire life. If anyone has written comments that, for instance, you decide you don't want to orally give all your comments, but you want to make sure they get in the record, or you might have 20 minutes of comments and of course you're limited to 6 minutes. If you have them written down, you can also provide them to us tonight, and we will manually put them into the case record without you having to mail them or email them to the Public Service Commission. I just want to convey that in case people run out of time and have more thoughts in written forms. The second person that signed up was Kathy Clement. Kathy Clement?
Can I yield my time to someone else right now? I mean, who's not signed up? Or
We can. Well, if there's someone else who wants to speak and hasn't signed up, they'll have an opportunity to speak, but we'll just do them at the end of the list.
Okay.
But we don't allow folks that,
Yes.
I've once had a proposal to accumulate something like 30 minutes of time for a
Yes.
single person.
Sure.
So, that gets messy fairly quickly. So would you like us to skip past you?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Joey Shadowan.
Hi, my name is Joey Shadowin. I live at 114 Woodford Drive in Lexington. I live in an older, circa 1924 single-family home in the Cardinal Valley neighborhood, where I've lived for over 20 years now. We have found this to be an affordable neighborhood that includes a reasonable amount of land that allows us the capacity to supplement our groceries with our own produce we grow ourselves in our yard in the summer. However, like many houses of this age, our investment in this house was significantly improved by modifications over the years, such as improving our energy efficiency through insulation and window replacement, installation of a heat pump, and an addition of 16 solar panels, a 4-kilowatt system installed in 2019 through Lexington's first Solarize initiative. The combined investments in our home over this 20-year period has resulted in more affordable heating and cooling. Our solar panels generate excess energy for at least 3 to 5 months during the year, saving us around $300 annually to date. Our plan is to install a home electric vehicle charger within the year to take further advantage of the excess energy generated in the summer with our solar panels, which will allow us to save on our monthly transportation expenses as well. Over the past 2 years, we have seen an increase in our neighborhood where more properties are taking advantage of distributed rooftop solar. Not only does this investment allow us to better stabilize our electricity bills over a long period of time, but it also allows us to do our part to stabilize the climate by reducing our personal carbon footprint as the impacts of climate change is becoming very real. I suffer from asthma, so the recent widespread fires in Canada, which resulted in several days of hazardous air quality in Kentucky, had a real impact on my health. So I am glad to hear that the proposal from KU, LG&E would include more use of solar and storage in their plans and a reduction in coal-fired power. I am opposed to their plan to rely on an increased use of gas turbines. At a time when all of us are working to reduce our reliance on carbon, the proposal to add new gas plants that would have a life cycle of up to 40 years is counterproductive to the nation's carbon reduction goals and will continue to impact our air quality. I believe that if the utilities would plan for more energy efficiency programs and provide more support for distributed energy, such as I have made in my own home investments, that will provide us a cleaner and more resilient capacity. Right now, my personal investment in rooftop solar has been a benefit to myself as well as KU and LG&E's electric grid, but they have an artificial threshold of the net metering program once they reach 1% capacity. If they were to expand this net metering threshold, that would allow me and others in my neighborhood to take more advantage of the benefits of distributed solar and help provide greater resiliency to the grid, as well as provide me more control over my personal energy costs over time, which is a real benefit during times of inflation. I also want to ask KU, LG&E to make even more investments in energy storage as well, which would better address their concerns over reliability. I want to thank you for your time, and I want to thank the PSC for holding these public meetings. Thank you.
Thank you.
And where should I leave a copy?
Either one of those. The next individual is Kathy Inco.
Hi, I'm Kathy Hinko, and I live at 1941 Payne Street in Louisville. This was the only comment period I could come to. I am a customer of LG&E and a shareholder in PPL, which owns LG&E and owns KU and is a controlling element. First, I want to thank you for holding these opportunities for the community to comment on a proposal that will change our course and our costs over the next 40 years. Many others will talk about the proposed environmental impacts and alternatives, and my written comments address that. But tonight I'm going to focus on the violation of law of process for this proposal to be considered. I remind you that we, the ratepayers, will be paying, and we deserve your best enforcement. LG&E, KU, and PPL did not adhere to Kentucky law that requires a demand-side management community voice, as put in KRS 278285. Nor did they follow the Kentucky law that set an integrated resource plan that actually does something to educate the public. These are preparations to a proposal of any size, much less one of this magnitude. I sat on the DSM committee for innumerable years, and up until this case was filed, there was no mention of needing any kind of significant increase. And in fact, LG&E portrayed the situation as being well under control because appliances were so much more efficient. They looked at the birdie they did to us, and they disrespected us. The integrated resource plan, well, they basically disrespected you as well as us. I read it and commented on it, and this proposal follows on the heels of the integrated resource plan and on the heels of DSM cases, and none of them mentioned what this giant proposal had in place. So the duplicity involved in keeping us ignorant so that we could not understand, and waiting until there was a case filed when really all these preparations should have happened. You should reject it, this proposal, and make them start over again. Make them file an integrated resource plan that actually says what it's supposed to say, and you should require them to have DSM meetings and hear what the public has to say before they file something that has this kind of momentous budget breaking. Now, you have also been neglectful, resulting in policies that are racist. And I'm bringing this up because you must treat members of the residential ratepayers the same, but you overcharge in Louisville black households and subsidize white households with the way you structure the rate payments. You need to do two things: require information from LG&E and KU by census tract, and you need to do a racial impact analysis for all substantive changes. How did this happen? Well, you allowed the kilowatt hours to be artificially lower in cost by moving it into the daily service charge. But you know what? From LG&E's testimony, which is the best I could get in terms of data, you should be getting this data, the zip codes with the lowest usage are in black, low-income neighborhoods, and the places with the highest usage were white, affluent neighborhoods. So collecting daily service charges and keeping the kilowatt hours artificially low has a disparate impact. Let me give you an example. Zip code 40210 and zip code 40223. 40210, 84% black, with an annual household usage of 9,474 kilowatt hours. Zip code 40223, 90% white, with an annual kilowatt usage per account of 12,352. Now, in addition, and this is from the post office, 40210 is 3.22 square miles with 4,000 people per square mile. 40223 is 11.74 square miles with a density of 1,800. And the recent storm, fewer than 5 outages in 40201, but 957 outages in 40223. Imagine how many daily service charges you're getting from taking the food out of low-income black children living in 40210 to subsidize both the lower kilowatt hours and the high rate of service that has to be provided to the white affluent neighborhoods. You need to be studying this, and if you don't think so, you should look at 42 United States Code 1983, which under the color of law, you could be depriving people of their civil rights by race.
You don't get extra time, Ms. Cooper. You
All
don't
right.
get 12 minutes.
I don't need 12 minutes. I'll submit a written comment as well. Hi, my name's Kara Cooper. I live at 808 Oak Hill Drive here in Lexington, 40505. I am a KU customer. I've been concerned about climate change since I first learned about it as a college student about 15 years ago. And at the time, I was enraged to learn that scientists had been talking about the impending crisis for 40 years already. Companies like PPL knew in the 70s that our use of coal and natural gas were going to have disastrous effects on our global systems, back when there was plenty of time to change course. My partner grew up in Fort Myers, Florida, where our children will never see many of the landmarks he grew up with after one of the most destructive hurricanes on record. My best friend is considering selling her dream home because in a few years, insurance costs will skyrocket and property will be unsellable due to sea level rise. And this summer, I had to explain to my 2.5-year-old why we couldn't play outside for many days in a row because the air quality was bad. I worry about power outages in the winter storms we're now regularly experiencing, and power outages in the record-breaking heat waves that will be the new norm. This is climate change, and it was all avoidable. And we're the lucky ones because we can generally afford our electricity bills and stay safe in extreme weather conditions. PPL recently made the top 12 list of worst companies for electricity shutoffs in the country, leaving people stranded without access to electricity, costing them precious resources and lost food due to refrigerators being shut off, and lost lives due to medical vulnerability. The same report showed that just 1% of shareholder profits could have kept the electricity on for those same folks. Meanwhile, LG and EKU plan to build 2 new huge gas plants and lock us into paying for 40 more years of natural gas, while continuing to limit access to rooftop solar that makes our homes and grid more resilient, and doing nearly nothing to meaningfully help us reduce our future electricity needs and low-income folks reduce their bills through energy efficiency. It's not right, but it makes sense. It makes sense because the current system rewards them for building new expensive infrastructure through guaranteed returns on ratepayer investments. It promises that ratepayers will assume the risk on their bad decisions, like delaying the transition to renewables in light of pending carbon reduction regulations. And it ties ever-expanding consumption to ever-expanding profits for its CEOs and shareholders. A CEO who took home $9 million in 2022, I might add. Now, I know that the PSC is charged with making balanced decisions that look after both the needs of utilities and customers, and there is certainly fear from the backlash of utility and fossil fuel lobbies. Your turn's next, Hazel. It puts regulators in a tough position to do what's right. But I also ask, if the PSC isn't leading our utilities, forcing our utilities to transition to the energy future we know we need, who will? If the PSC is not looking out for customers, who is? LG and EKU should not be allowed to make a joke out of the integrated resource planning process. They should not be allowed to waste stakeholders' time in dog and pony DSM planning processes and use modeling projections that don't fully account for what is possible when we prioritize efficiency and rooftop solar and account for the reality of climate change and the various costs associated with extreme weather. Send this proposal back to the drawing board and demand that our utilities be visionary and creative, because that is what this moment calls for. We don't have to sacrifice reliability to transition to renewables. If anything, the transition makes our electric systems more reliable and more resilient. We don't need to pay for more fossil fuels when we could lower bills and future electricity needs through energy efficiency programs. We don't need to allow monopoly utilities to own our solar when we can restore one-to-one net metering and incentivize rooftop solar that we own. The time for business as usual is over. Our children and our grandchildren are desperate for people in positions of power to be bold and to take action to protect their future. We are running out of time, and we are counting on you. Thank you.
Thank you to you and your co-presenter. Our next speaker is Emery Elkinson.
Hello, my name is Emery Elkinson. I live at 520 Sayre Avenue, 40508.
Please proceed.
I was born in September 2005, 1 month after Hurricane Katrina devastated parts of our country. There have been countless more natural disasters since then. They have been linked to climate change over and over and have taken thousands of lives across the globe. I was born in Los Angeles, California, a place so drought-stricken that I didn't see rain for the first 3 years of my life. At 4 years old, I moved to Lexington, blissfully unaware of how I was living through the hottest years ever recorded, but the coolest I would ever experience again. At 12 years old, I started hearing from my cousins who still lived in LA about how they had to stay home from school because the smog was so bad from the wildfires. Excuse me. As I heard about these natural disasters, I felt compelled to help. I did everything everyone keeps telling young people to do. I got involved. I phone banked and canvassed for candidates who promised to bring change. I joined youth environmental groups. I got involved, on the local level and on the state level. And yet I feel as powerless as I did 5 years ago. Because it doesn't matter if Lexington establishes a climate goal, or Biden passes the Inflation Reduction Act, or anything else. If corporations like KU and LG&E refuse to act with the urgency necessary. I applaud KU for trying to retire these coal and natural gas plants, but we need to do more. Don't allow the building of new gas plants when renewable energy is increasingly affordable and the only way forward. When I'm in my 50s, I don't want to be paying for gas plants that never should have been built in the first place. The pressure is on you all to put our future needs for clean air and a livable climate above KU's current profits. Thank you.
Kathy McCoy.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kathy McCoy. I live at 589 South Point Drive in Lexington. And while I realize that this process has gone so far already, my comments may not change anyone's mind. They are my feelings and what I have come to see happen over the many long years of my life, through which I've suffered in California also from rolling blackouts and bad air quality until the state was forced to clean up its air. And I do know that gas and coal power plants can have in their chimneys scrubbers which clean the air as it flows out of the chimney, and therefore it will reduce the pollutants in the air. Now, the things that concern me the most about what I understand was that they were considering solar panels as a replacement for gas and coal. Solar panels, as I'm sure you know, mostly come from China. In fact, I think the last U.S. company stopped making them. Needless to say, we don't need to give more money to China. That they deteriorate, and in 25 years, the panels most likely will need to be replaced. Also, they have cracks that they get from things like hailstorms, as I'm sure many people here know. My roof was cracked. My roof was cracked by the hail in this last big storm we had. I'm sure it would have destroyed a lot of the panels on a panel farm. The panels, when they deteriorate, also they cause toxic fumes. And the chemicals in the panels, when they are buried or however they're destroyed, will leach into the water system. My notes are not quite that well made. I know Kentucky is a coal state, and they rely heavily on coal produced in the state. It seems like we should be using the resources we have been provided by God to take care of rather than to try to circumvent things by destroying what we already have. I don't know how long the plants we already have are supposed to exist and how much longer they have where they're operational. I don't know if we're a little ahead of the mark by requiring them to be destroyed within the next 2 years, 3 years. But I do know that if people want to move over to another form of energy production, they should be willing to do so slowly, taking into consideration the effects of what they're doing. I'm sorry. I'm one of those people who don't believe in climate change, other than the fact that climate has changed through my whole life. I've lived in more states than you can count through my life, so I know that climates are different in every state. I do know Kentucky has been hot these last couple of years, and my sister who sold me my house promises me that it's not always this bad. And I want to believe her. She's my sister. So I'm very glad I have air conditioning. I'm very glad it doesn't cost me an arm and a leg to pay for the air conditioning. I'm very glad that I have heat and that it doesn't cost me too much to heat my house in the winter. And I guess that's about all I have to say, and I thank you very much.
The next speaker is Judith Humble.
Thank you. My name is Judith Humble. I live at 144 Lincoln Avenue in Lexington. That's 40502. I'm a KU customer. And I support the retirement of the coal-fired plants, but I want to ask that the PSC deny permission to build the 2 new gas-fired plants. I do recognize and believe in climate change. I think we are seeing the terrible impacts on a daily basis. They're on the front page of the newspaper almost every day. We've had impacts here in Kentucky, and I don't think I want to personally see things get any worse than they already are. So we know that if we continue to put greenhouse gas emissions in the air, climate change will advance. We've been advised that if our warming exceeds 2 degrees centigrade, that we're really going to be in trouble for some terrible disasters. So at this point in time, one concern about gas-fired plants is methane leakage. I've done some reading about this, and apparently methane leakage can occur at every stage in construction and operation, and unless it's held to a very low level, gas-fired plants can be on par with coal-fired plants for the amount of emissions they produce. So I adamantly oppose the production of gas-fired plants, and especially the plan to operate them for 40 years into the future. We've been advised that we need to stop producing emissions as soon as we can, and so I would like for KU and LG&E to abandon the plans for the gas-fired plants and double their renewable energy portfolio, and that's what I think we need in Kentucky. I think the plans to build gas-fired plants are neither reasonable at this time, and I think the negative long-term benefits will outweigh any advantages that we see. Thank you.
Let's take a second to get the lights back on. 6:45. The next person that's signed Signed up to provide public comments is Dave Cooper.
Hi, I'm Dave Cooper. I live at 124 Paris Avenue in Lexington. I want to thank the PSC for holding these public meetings. There's a lot of people here. I think there's a lot of interest in this topic. The issue of climate change, global warming, we're not in Arizona right now. I think the folks in Texas, you're not going to find very many people that are denying climate change. They are roasting right now, 20 days with temperatures in excess of 100 degrees. We're in a planetary emergency, and we all need to be acting with urgency on a daily basis to save our society, to save our lives. This is it. It's all coming down right now, and maybe we're still at a point where we can turn this thing around, but maybe it's too late. But we should all, in the PSC, you all have a tremendous, tremendous responsibility here that could involve, the lives of all the people in this room. So I urge you to act with urgency, and thank you for listening. Biggest issue, I'm against building any more coal plants. I'm against building any more gas plants. When I look around Kentucky, what I see is energy waste everywhere I look, and it drives me crazy. My house, I've got a 100-year-old bungalow house. It was not very energy efficient. I moved in. I've done the things that I know to do, and generally speaking, I use about 200 kilowatt hours a month. In the summer with the air conditioning, it'll be higher, maybe up to 500, but I feel like I'm doing pretty well. We do home weatherization down in Harlan County and in Letcher County. We've done some work down there. And the folks that are in the old trailers, in the coal camp houses, there's no insulation in these houses, and people don't understand electricity. Is what I see as the biggest problem when we're trying to focus on how we can reduce the amount of energy that's consumed in the state, so we don't have to build these new plants. Let's look at these at how people understand electricity, and most people think 120 volts, that's it, and they'll go around their house unplugging the night lights, and they don't understand that the space heaters are using 1,500 times as much electricity as those night lights. That's what needs to be. We need to educate people about, and KU and LG&E could, and East Kentucky Power, all these could do a much better job explaining to people, get rid of those space heaters. Those are what's driving your energy bill up. And people are trying to heat their trailer, and they've got space heaters all over the house, and then they have a $500 electric bill or more, and then they get a cutoff notice. If we could focus more on educating people, energy efficiency, simple things that people can do around their house, I think we could save enough electricity so we don't have to build these new gas plants and power plants. And this is a wonderful school. Look at this beautiful new school we've got. We've got daylighting. We don't really even need these lights in here. It's great, and it makes the kids behave better. It just presents such a nice atmosphere for all the students. We could be doing that in all the schools, and all the Walmarts should have skylights instead of overhead lighting. We should be painting the roofs of all these buildings white. We should be putting solar panels on the roofs of the new convention center in Lexington and on the roofs of all these schools. There's so many things we can be doing. This is a low-hanging fruit. That's where I would like to see the energy and the attention being focused on. Thank you.
Thank you. Christine Smith. Reba Moore. Richard Slevin. One of the two ways has to be wrong, and I apologize about whichever one it was.
I'm Richard Levine. I don't know where Richard Levin is. And I live at 5675 Kidville Lane in Lexington. I'm an architect, urban designer. I taught at UK in architecture. I was a professor for 50 years. This building was designed by some of my students. I built the first zero energy house in Kentucky. I started in 1974. I built 5 low-cost, affordable houses that were zero energy that were bought by 5 single mothers, and they're getting money back from their utility company only because they're on TVA rather than any Kentucky utility, which does that sort of thing for excess electricity produced, and it's unbelievable what they paid for their houses. Most of my work is in sustainable cities. I've written 2 books on sustainable cities, one on the extraordinary things that are going on in China. I don't mention some of the terrible things, but they're doing both things. And there are some fantastic things that are going on in utilities all around this country. Never mind what's going on in Kentucky. The proposal on the table is anachronistic. It's moving ahead slowly, trying to keep the status quo as close as possible. Yes, there is solar. Yes, there is storage. I have in my bag here one of the solutions that you all know about. If you put together what we know, instead of, yes, we need to decommission these old plants because they're obsolete, they're inefficient, they're nearing the end of their service life, let's tip the hat to storage, let's tip the hat to solar, and let's build some big new gas plants, which will be obsolete long before the 2050 deadline when the whole world is supposed to collapse if we don't do now. Whatever we do now is going to be around by 2050. It'll be too late to decommission those gas-fired plants, which will be stranded resources within a decade or 2. And you'll have to charge the ratepayers for the mistakes that are being made right today. If you can put together what we already have, you can cut the worst problem that utilities have. What is the worst problem? Peak. The utilities, by what we've seen up on the screen, the utilities are required because they're a regulated monopoly to provide all possible circumstances, to provide power for all possible circumstances. The only way they can do that is to provide for peaks. The peak is the one time in the month when everyone is using electricity. That's more than twice the average for the month. Sometimes it's 3 times the average for the month, and that's the major cost for the utility for the whole month, the one 15-minute period that they have to buy electricity from other utilities far from here when everyone is peaking. And the rates go sky high, many times more than it would cost them if they could provide for that energy themselves. There's no reason to do that because the problem with electricity is you can't store it. You can store fuel, but you can't store electricity until this. You all have things that run on this. You charge them up, and you can go wherever you want without a cord. You have cars that have these things. They're getting cheaper and cheaper all the time. When I made my own house, when I installed PV in my house, the price for PV panels had dropped 80% from just a few years before. From then until now, from 2009 to now, it's dropped another 80%, and the prices continue to drop. The efficiencies get higher, the reliability gets better, And that curve keeps going. I keep up with all of these things. That's my profession. I know what's going on in other parts of the world. There are other people that know more than I do. And if you just looked into I think the Public Service Commission could do us all a big favor by not just taking comments from whoever wants to talk, but looking at what is possible in the future. I'm a scenario builder. I build scenarios for extraordinary things to happen and for catastrophes to happen. I know the range. Lots of people do this. This is what we do these days. This is what artificial intelligence is very good at doing. Look at all of the possibilities and seeing which paths offer us the best opportunities. There are paths out there. There are people that know how to do this. If you could put together solar with storage, you could cut, in the first instance, the peaks in half. You could decommission half of all of the plants that we have right now and still provide more resilience than you have now. I beg you, and thank you for doing this, but I beg you to not just say yes, no on this proposal, but look to the experts and figure out other ways of moving ahead for Kentucky's future. Thank you.
Thank you. I have here a Patty Drouse.
Good evening. My name is Patty Drouse. I live at 608 Allen Court in Lexington. Thank you for this opportunity, and I admire you folks for this is a difficult job and difficult decisions to be made. We in Kentucky and the world are in the midst of climate change and climate chaos. What am I doing wrong here? We can all see the effects in the severe weather events in western and eastern Kentucky and the intense heat across the United States and smoke from acres and acres of wildfires in Canada. Gas as our source of power was only ever meant to be a transition fuel, to come off of coal, not as the plan.
I'm sorry.
It keeps echoing like that. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I promise I'll give you all the time that you're.
It's okay.
And the only reason, just for everybody else's benefit, is we want to make sure that it gets recorded.
Okay.
If it doesn't go to the microphone, it won't end up on the video.
Okay.
And then that means it won't end up in the case record. And
Okay.
we want to make sure your effort is worthwhile.
All right, thank you. So gas power as a fuel was not meant to be the plan for the future. It was meant to transition us off of coal so that it bought us time to get to renewable energy or whatever other source we would be using for the next 40 years. We must be focused on reducing fossil fuels to decrease our carbon emissions. One important measure is through energy conservation, energy efficiency, which has not seemed to be a focus of KU and LG&E, except for the paper notices that come with bills and that no one reads. Can they help people financing, insulating houses, putting in good windows, buying more efficient refrigerators and stoves and so on? This proposal from KU and LG&E to develop new gas plants is premature. Yes, they should retire the coal plants. KU and LG&E should first put in a wholehearted effort at helping customers implement energy conservation and then reevaluate the need for energy production. Don't just put flyers with the bill. We're currently in a red light crisis regarding the climate, and our power companies should be responsible and act responsibly in considering carbon emissions as one of the criteria for proposing new power sources. I think the PSC should also have this as one of their criteria when evaluating need now. What will the carbon emissions be? climate impacts are just, every little thing we do right now, and this is a big decision, and this will determine our future and whether we'll live or not. And that's basically my comments. And also, I am also interested to hear of the backgrounds of the PSC Commission if we have an opportunity to hear that. Thank you.
So we don't do Mr. Ross, we don't do a presentation, but all of our information, all of our backgrounds and experience are all on the Public Service Commission's website. Thank you. Nikita Perimal.
Oh, that makes sense. Hello, my name is Nikita Perumal. I live at 619 Orchard Avenue, 40502. I'm a Kentucky Utilities customer. Was there anything else? Okay. Yeah, I'm commenting because I've been alarmed about the climate crisis since I was 11 years old. I just turned 29. I have a full life ahead of me. I have little baby cousins who live in parts of the world like India that are like directly being impacted, have been directly impacted by the climate crisis for a long time. Kentucky is currently, I couldn't go running just a couple of weeks ago because this guy was choked with smog, right? I want children myself. I want a livable future, and right now I'm deeply concerned about my ability to do that, given the trajectory of the energy landscape, both in the U.S. and specifically in Kentucky. I fully support LG&E and KU's determination to retire the 3 coal units, and I have grave concerns about their plans to invest $1.2 billion in risky new gas plants. That is absolutely not the direction that we need to be going right now. One, because, as I've said, like, we are rapidly approaching having no time left, and this locks us in to the kind of catastrophic climate crisis that I do not want for myself or my children or the rest of my life. I also just want to encourage KU and LG&E to invest instead in the a robust portfolio of energy efficiency, distributed and utility scale solar, and that includes restoring one-to-one net metering. Kentucky Utilities is a monopoly utility that the PSC, it's y'all's job to protect everyday ratepayers like me from being on the line to pay for the bad ideas in this plan. And we have an opportunity right now to really build the future that we want. And I think y'all have a really specific responsibility in that I urge you to take. I don't think it's too late, but it's y'all's role, right? And then the final thing I just wanted to say about the gas plan specifically is that was not in the IRP proposed by the utilities, and that's a process we need to take seriously. Thanks.
I have a last name Middleton. Sorry, the first name is not well written. Anyone with the last name of Middleton that would like to provide comments? Okay. Matt Partymiller. Okay. Henry Jackson.
Good evening. My name is Henry Jackson. I'm at 1000 Rain Court, Lexington. First, I'd like to endorse the comments of the Kentucky for Energy Democracy in their entirety, but with 2 additional comments. First, I'd like to request a pause in the PPL request to build those gas plants to first develop a climate action plan for the PPL 77 county service area so as to better evaluate the cost benefit of these proposals, or failing that, to at the very least provide an evaluation of how these plant proposals compare with the goals of the 2011 Kentucky Climate Action Plan Council goals and recommendations. That's from 2011, and I'll send you guys a copy of the link. There's a great executive summary with it, really. You can read it right away. My second comment is, given the lateness of accelerating climate change, it would be essential to first prepare a vulnerability assessment of the climate changes in PPL's service area, and then, based on that assessment, develop possible measures to deal with those vulnerabilities. I have an op-ed here that goes into more detail on this topic than time would permit here. I have 3 copies for the commission and 1 for staff. Thank you for your consideration of my comments.
Pamela Mitchell. Pamela Mitchell. And Don Pratt.
I'll make your evening short and not say much, but in all actuality,
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Pratt, make sure we get your name and your address.
I don't remember that. 912 Royal here in Lexington. I have been before you all many a time, sadly to no avail, and I hope that changes. You actually have heard from one of the national and international authorities on sustainable cities, and I don't know if you introduced yourself that way, but I would invite you to go to his house to see what a sustainable house is. It's a marvelous. Have you want everybody to come out there?
Not this evening.
Oh, but I highly recommend that you go to see this house. And we do have to go to sustainable cities, though I don't necessarily believe that what we're doing in our country right now is correct. We have to completely go away from consumption economics and consumption. These companies are based on the need to consume. And of course, they love, like the woman said from Louisville, they love to mark their rates up and effectively keep more people in poverty, not with that intent, but because they want to make money. I understand that. But in my case before, I have seen these utilities actually lie to the PSC. And I've also been good friends with 2 of your lawyers in the past, Bill Doyle and Paul Ryan. He has a real funny, weird name, but you can look him up. They both said they never accomplished what should have been done for the benefit of the public. And I speak because I want to see and hear other people spread that out, and let us know that we count on you for changing what has happened in the past. And I do know personally that they lied. And the city of Lexington, representing them too, lied or sat silent when they shouldn't have been. And this had to do with the issue of our water company, including our rates having gone sky high because of building a pipeline and a plant on the Kentucky River in Owenston, Kentucky. There was bribery. I think some man may have gone to jail. I can't tell you all this, but this is what I know to be the policy of rate seekers and the cost that it goes to us. And we in Lexington are paying higher prices on our water right now because of a PSC not doing enough for us. I thank you. But I will submit some more comments, and maybe be in Frankfurt. You might see me again.
That brings us to the end of individuals who have signed up and indicated their interest in providing public comments and then acted accordingly. So
I signed up on there for comments.
okay, so come on forward. I'm sorry, it must have got missed when it got transcribed.
My name is Tobin Barlow. I live at 821 Bellows Mill Road in Harrodsburg, Kentucky. Unlike a lot of people here, I do have a different perspective than you do. I lived in the shadow of Unit 3. I lived on the property of E.W. Brown Power Station until I was 17 years old. I have watched the flue ash come out of a stack. But as today, it's water vapor. Scrubber units are effective. Coal fire generation is effective. Coal fire generation is reliable. I have seen what happened in Nebraska with a solar field that was destroyed by hail because their hail guard system failed. I don't want to see a solar field in Mercer County taking up valuable farmland that gets destroyed by hail be put out of service for some unknown amount of time. I've seen the hydroelectric power plant that still runs at Dix Dam, built in 1910, still running today. Generation out of there is still running, but it powers all the lights at the coal burning facility, so 100% of generation is going to the wire. There's probably not a lot of people that understand that that does happen. But what I don't like to see is I don't like to see people jumping onto the boat with solar and wind power, because there are things in that that are not environmentally friendly. These turbines, wind turbines break. They leave 100-foot props laying on the ground stacked up like cordwood, not being hauled out for recycling. They're laying there. I've seen these in multiple states. Wind turbines get shut down by ice storms. I watched that happen in Texas. So anybody that suddenly had a shortage of styrofoam paper plates, if you use those, that's because a lot of the foaming operations in Texas were shut down because the power was not there to continue the process. And as far as the solar fields go, I've seen everything from the studies in China where they're actually mining this stuff. They're putting out 1,000 times more into the air than has ever been in a coal-fired plant in the United States. And they're doing this to produce those solar panels that are going to everybody's green initiatives everywhere else but there. They flooded an entire valley for production of electricity to be able to fund and fill those orders for parts for these turbines and for these solar fields. Nobody likes to hear the dirty truth. Everybody's all about the feel good. And everything that I've seen, everything that I have experienced through my life, I'm almost 50 years old. I've hunted in 13 states. I've seen from as far as you can see red blinking lights at night of nothing but these turbines. Pain in the rear. Ugliest things that God ever allowed to be put on the face of his planet. And the solar fields causing thermoclines above them that are distorting heat as well as creating more issues with climate. I am a hunter. I am a fisherman. Conservation is in my nature. I see what goes on in the woods. I see what goes on in the water. I keep up with that stuff myself. But I do this for seeing what's going to be best for the environment, but not at the detriment of us continuing to move forward. So unless everybody's willing to get rid of computers, smartphones, EV cars, because an EV car in my life doesn't work. I drive 19 hours one way sometimes to go on a trip. No way an EV is ever going to do that. I have a vested interest in continuing to see progression of technology. Don't get me wrong, better products, better efficiencies, better construction techniques, all these things can be beneficial. But to jump off the cliff and to have something happen that suddenly your power's gone because the turbines break, the solar fields go dark, what are you going to do then? In the healthcare world, I used to be in IT healthcare. Coal-fired generation is important to continue to keep life-sustaining services going for the population. I have yet to see a hospital, I have yet to see any healthcare facility go 100% renewable thinking about patient safety. I understand that there's health defects that can come from these things. I should know. I lived on the property of a power plant. But at the same time, I understand that the benefits of that generation being sustainable and being readily available outweighs some of the shutdowns and things, because not a lot of us want to cut back. I don't know very many people here that want to turn the lights off. I don't know very many people here that want to actually go back in regression of how they've developed. I've not seen that happen yet. But what I'd like to see the PSC do is do a hard look at what happens when these solar fields go dark for storm damage or what have you. What's the time frame for getting these things back online? I do appreciate out in eastern Kentucky where they're going to be using reclaimed land for solar fields. That to me is a good use of reclaiming a spent coal mine. But at the same time, if you're going to put a solar field in farmland, you're taking away productivity from a large section of the United States. I want to see how the PSC reacts when we don't have the ability to pick and choose where we can place these anymore. You know, it's unfortunate I'm the only one that I know of from here in Harrodsburg, but it's living in the dark. Thank you for your time.
Is there anybody that did not have an opportunity to speak and would like an opportunity?
Hello, my name is Mark Ritter, and I live in Frankfort, Kentucky, 1006 Arapahoe Trail. LG&E and Kentucky Utilities did not mention building 2 new gas plants in their 15-year plan submitted in October of 2021. It is misleading for them to immediately turn around and request this investment from customers. We need our utilities to be working together with customers to create solutions for our energy needs, not purposely ignoring the process in place that allows the PSC to make sure utilities are adequately planning for a sustainable future. I encourage the PSC to support the closing of the obsolete coal-fired generating plants. Brown Unit Number 3 is a continuous environmental disaster, referring back to the notice of violation issued by the Kentucky Division for Air Quality dated August 12, 2005. This was followed by the U.S. EPA notice of violation dated April 25, 2006 for prevention of significant deterioration. These are requirements of the Clean Air Act, New Source Performance Standards, or NSPS, and as Title V of the Clean Air Act, and the Kentucky State Implementation Plan, or the SIP. These violations addressed a malicious act of deception and greed. I support the comments from Kentuckians for Energy Democracy. I encourage the PSC to initiate the installation of household and merchant solar facilities wherever it is feasible to have them located. I'm grateful to the PSC for the opportunity to participate in developing our energy future. Thank you for the PSC for ensuring Kentuckians' voices are an important part of the regulatory process.
Is there anybody else that has not spoken that would like to provide public comments? Okay. All right. Seeing that there is no one else interested in providing comments, we will now soon adjourn the meeting. Remember, there still are opportunities to provide comments if you or someone you would like to know that you know would like to do so. Those comments can be entered through our website, psc.ky.gov. They can be emailed to the PSC at psc.comment@ky.gov. They can be mailed to the PSC at 211 Sauer Boulevard, Frankfort, Kentucky 40601 or 40602. There are also additional opportunities to provide public comments in person. We have scheduled public comment sessions in Harlan, Madisonville, and Louisville. We also have a virtual comment session that we've set up. All of the information on how to participate in those are all on our website. And then finally, as always, public comments can be provided at the outset of the first day of the hearing in any case. In this case, the first day of the hearing, which all of our hearings are live streamed on the Public Service Commission's YouTube site. The first day of the hearing is what? August 22nd. It will be to say the least, a multi-day hearing. We only allow public comments to occur at the outset of the hearing. So on that very first day is when we open it up for public comments, and we will take as long as necessary to take all of the public comments that day. We begin hearings at 9 a.m. at the Public Service Commission. That is the physical address of the PSC that's located on the wall there. If you are, or anyone that wants to provide public comments are uninterested in driving to Frankfort to do so, the PSC will have instructions on our website the day before the hearing on how to sign up to provide those comments before the hearing virtually. So we'll just remind folks that anytime you provide public comments in cases, that you include your name, your address, and the case number, which is 2022-00402. Thank you all very much for coming tonight, being respectful to each other. And again, any information you would like on this case can be found on our website at psc.ky.gov. Nothing else this meeting is adjourned.